up, it's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek, and welcome to the next episode of my series. I still don't know what to call it. My top 5 favourite movies for each year since I was born, or whatever. So we're up to 1985. Not that you can see, but the microphone's in the way. Whatever. There you go, microphone. 1985. Can you hear me? Anyway. And as from the image, you may guess what is in there. But anyway, I've got my top 5, and there's several honourable mentions. I had to think about that then. How many? 3, 6, 9, 10 honourable mentions. So I tell you, it's unbelievable. And I was looking at future episodes, and I think some of them have even more. I was surprised. I was very surprised when I'm going through the films of those various years, particularly 1987. There's a lot of honourable mentions on that, and I left a lot out. I left a lot. I think shall I include that? I mean, I probably could have taken some of these out as well, but that's 1987. That's in the future of this show. Sorry, I just noticed a spelling mistake in my list. Anyway, right, so where were we? So 1985, my top 5 favourite films from this year, or that year. As I always say, not the 5 best films of that year. It's my top 5 favourite films of that year. The films I think are my particularly favourites, but they're not particularly the best films. But I think they are because they're my favourites. But you know what I mean. These are the films I enjoyed the most out of that year. And then we've got what did I say? 10 honourable mentions, which are the next, which are all good films in my opinion. Some may surprise you, because I have a certain tastes. So anyway. Right, so we'll get on with it, shall we? But before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe, share the videos, drop a comment, hit the notification bell if you're subscribed already. But the emphasis on subscribe, it's free, just do it, Anyway, right, so, and if you have subscribed, and then you've noticed that I'm not popping up in your feeds and all that, just make sure you are still subscribed, because occasionally YouTube does randomly unsubscribe people. It's happened to me. I've been I thought, oh, hang on, I've not heard from that channel for a while. That's not popped up in my recommendeds and stuff, or in my subscribers list. And so you check, and then you notice that you're unsubscribed. So you think, how did that happen? YouTube does it for some weird reason. I think YouTube is sentient. I don't think there's anybody who actually works at YouTube. I think they're all AIs and robots. But anyway, so it does weird things from time to time. Anyway, right, so let's get on with it, shall we? Let's get on with it. It's top 5. My top 5 films of 1985. The first film is, as you may guess, by the way, they're not in any order. It's not like the first one's the worst, if you know what I mean. Number 5, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's not like that, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're just the top 5 films. They're not in alphabetical order either. Right, so first up, we will begin. I'm waffling. I know I'm rambling. We will begin. Right. First up, Back to the Future. One of the greatest films of all time. It's up there. One of those special films that I sometimes talk about. It is an astonishingly good film. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. Starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, and a host of other people. Great cinematography from Dean Cundy. An amazing score from Alan Silvestri. I will say it again. I've said it before. Alan Silvestri's like one of these composers, one of these movie soundtrack composers that doesn't get enough credit. Everybody talks about John Williams and James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith. The latter two there, sadly no longer with us. But Alan Silvestri often gets forgotten about. But anyway, at a budget of $19 million, and its box office was $388.8 million. So let's call it 300. Let's call it 390. Let's round it up, shall we? It was the highest-grossing film of 1985, and it's a top-notch comedy, sci-fi, action, adventure whatever you want to call it, with Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox. He's friends with a a scientist called Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and he's invented the time machine out of a DeLorean. Everybody knows the story of Back to the Future, and he goes back in time to 1955, changes events, so his family start disappearing out of a photograph he's got, so he's got to put things right before he can go back to 1985. And it's an amazing film. It's an amazing, much better than the sequels. The sequels were good, but it were much better. And I think there's I think Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale have got this clause, or that's some legal document where that it's never going to get remade. I don't know if that'll stand the test of time, but thankfully it's not being remade yet, because I don't think they could do any better. But anyway, so there we go. So that's Back to the Future, and everybody, another story. It wasn't originally going to be Michael J. Fox. It was going to be, I've forgotten his bloody name now, Eric Stoltz. It was supposed to be Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, and actually started filming with him, and it wasn't happening. I don't think he understood the mechanics of this comedy adventure thing, and they didn't seem to get it. And because they wanted Michael J. Fox originally, but he couldn't do it because they were doing his Family Ties series, but then he ended up being able to do both at once, so we were like working 24 hours a day, it seemed, while they were doing Back to the Future. But it paid off and he became a superstar. So there we go. So that's Back to the Future. So next up, let's move on. Rambo First Blood Part 2. It's nothing like the first Rambo film, First Blood, which is an amazing film in itself. It's one of those films that people kind of forget about, and then they watch it and think, oh yeah, that were really good. And this is a all-out action. This is Rambo that everybody knows. It's going into battle. Let's say chest out, muscles rippling, bazookas, whatever, bandana on, suiting up, shots, putting knives in things, and being all veiny and muscly. Anyway, that's it. Directed by George P. Cosmatos, from a story by Kevin Jarre and a screenplay by James Cameron and Sylvester Stallone. James Cameron wrote this in between Terminator and Aliens. And it stars, obviously, Sylvester Stallone and Richard Crenna, Charles Napier, and Stephen Burkoff, and that fella, I can never remember his name, that fella from Karate Kid. Martin Cove, that's the fella, Martin Cove, and Julia Nixon as well, who I don't think she appreciates this film, because she had to do a Vietnamese accent. You take me back, America, Rambo. It's all like that, and I don't think she doesn't look back fondly on this film. I think I should have read that in an interview somewhere or saw it. Anyway, it's a top-notch action adventure film where Rambo is sent back into Vietnam to take photographs of a prison camp from during the Vietnam War, and it's supposed to be empty, but he finds there's still American prisoners of war there after 10 years or whatever after the war ended. So he gets double-crossed by those in charge, and so he goes out and breaks them out himself, and it's a great film. It is a great film. A super duper action, explosions and guns and everything. So there we go. So that's Rambo First Blood Part 2. Right, next up, we're sticking with Sylvester Stallone. He's back again for Rocky IV. And he wrote and directed this one. Wrote, directed, starred in it. Some might say that's a step too far, but he can handle it. Can Sylvester Stallone. Starring Sylvester Stallone, as I just said, Talia Shire, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, Bridget Nielsen, and Dolph Lundgren. Rocky is, had been champion of the world for many years by the time this film comes around. But there's, much like in Rocky 3, where we had Mr. T coming up as, I've got his name now. I think it's B.A. Baracus. Clubber Lang. as Clubber Lang. He's coming up as Clubber Lang in Rocky 3 to take his title away from him. Well, in this one, it's Dolph Lundgren as Ivan Drago from the Soviet Union, because it were in the Cold War and all that. So, and Drago kills Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, in a exhibition match. And so Rocky basically does a boxing match of revenge in Russia, in Moscow. And it's a cool film. I really like. I like all the Rocky films. And there is a director's cut out there which I've never seen, called Rocky 4, Rocky vs Drago. I've never seen it. Some people say it's really good, but I've not seen it. And I think they took the robot out of it. Happy birthday, Paulie. With music by Vince DiCola. He were everywhere in the 80s with Vince DiCola. Anyway, so there we go. So that's Rocky 4. A lot of fun. I really like Rocky. I like all the Rocky films. And it did well at the box office. I don't know, where it was. It was the third highest grossing film of 1985. So there you go. Oh, anyway, moving on to Cocoon. I've got to admit, I've not seen this in quite a while, but it is one of my favourite films of that year. There's films in the honourable mentions that I've probably seen more than Cocoon, but I'm going to remedy that. I'm going to rewatch Cocoon soon. But I remember at the time, I absolutely adored this film. Well, not at the time, but when it came out on VHS and all that. I've got the VHS and stuff. But anyway, Cocoon, directed by Ron Howard, with a screenplay by Tom Benedek from a story by David Saperstein, produced by David Brown and Richard D. Zanuck and Lily Finney Zanuck, and stars Don Amici, who won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role in this, Wilford Brimley, who were only 50, I think he were only 50, or maybe 49 when he made this. It's supposed to be this old man, but like I say, we're younger than I am now. Hume Cronin, Brian Dennehy, again. Oh no, don't think of somebody else. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of First Blood. He were in First Blood, wasn't he? But that were a few years ago. Jack Gilford, Steve Guttenberg, whatever happened to him, Maureen Stapleton, Jessica Tandy, Gwen Verdon, Herta Ware, and Tanny Welsh. Whatever happened to Tanny Welsh? I only know her from this and the sequel. I'm sure she were in other stuff. Raquel Welch's daughter. Anyway, what else? Music by James Horner, who I've just mentioned. And it had a budget of $17.5 million, box office of 85.3, and it's a lovely film. It's one of these heartwarming family adventures, although there is some, not nudity, there's some adult themes expressed in it. But it's a nice film about these people from an old people's home, and they find a pool in the next door's building, the building next door to their old people's home. They find a swimming pool, and when they go and swim in it, this pool has got these rocks in the bottom of it, and when they go and swim in it, they feel rejuvenated. They feel young again. They don't look physically young, but they feel young inside, and they get their energy back, and they go dancing, and you see Don Amici doing some break dancing and body popping and all that stuff. And it turns out that these rocks in the bottom of this pool are actually cocoons that have got aliens in. They've been there for 10,000 years. They're from Atlantis. And Brian Dennehy plays the head alien. And they're in disguise as humans. And they're all these the brightly glowing aliens. When we see them in their real form, they can float about and stuff. They look like a British person on holiday somewhere sunny, glowing white. As I said, it's a lovely film, and obviously things go a bit awry. But one of the aliens dies, but it all ends nicely. I won't spoil how it ends, but it is a lovely, lovely film, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And I'm going to watch it soon. I know I say that a lot, and I never do. I never get round to watching stuff, but I am going to watch Cocoon again. Oh, I just noticed it's got Clint Howard in it. Who does he play? I'm going to have to watch it now. Man, me, who is Ron Howard's brother, and in Star Trek and other stuff. Right, so there we go. So that's Cocoon. Give that one a whirl. And finally, in my top 5, we've got A View to a Kill, a Bond film. Obviously, I always put the Bond films in my top 5 because I'm a huge James Bond movie fan. So here we go. View to a Kill. This is the last appearance of Roger Moore as 007. Directed by John Glenn, who directed most of the Bond films in the 80s. Maybe even not. No, I don't think he directed all of them, but not far off. Screenplay by Richard Maybaum and Michael G. Wilson, who had done loads of Bond films, haven't they? Obviously produced by Cubby Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, who is Cubby Broccoli's stepson. Starring Roger Moore, of course, the lovely Tanya Roberts, who, she's not the best actress in the world, but she looks the part. The late Tanya Roberts, and Grace Jones, Patrick McNee, the saddest. I really liked his character, and you can tell by my voice, it doesn't go well for Patrick McNee in this film, and it's really sad. And Christopher Walken, who plays a great Bond villain. It's all about Silicon Valley and microchips and all that stuff. So they're trying to bring Bond up to date. And it's a lot of fun. And Grace Jones is surprisingly good in this film. I'm not a huge Grace Jones fan. She kind of annoys me usually when I see her, but she's good in this as Mayday. It's got some great stunts in it, as you would expect from a Bond film. There's a parachute jump off the Eiffel Tower, and you can see that they've set up like a springboard or whatever for them to run off, so they could jump. The stuntmen can jump off the Eiffel Tower and not smash into all the girders below, because obviously it curves outwards, doesn't it? Anyway, so it's all about Zorin, who is Christopher Walken. He wants to basically sink Silicon Valley and become super rich and powerful. Because he will provide then all of the microchips for the world, or something like that, something along those lines. And it's, as I said, it's the last of Roger Moore's. After this, we would get Timothy Dalton after this, and kind of a reboot, sort of. But anyway, this was a good film for him to go out on. And a lot of fun in places. You can see his age is getting the better of him. I think this might be the film where he did mention, Roger Moore, that he were old enough to be his Bond girl's, Tanya Roberts' father. I think he were, I don't know, maybe he were pushing 60. Let's have a look, shall we? Let's have a look. This was 1985 when this came out. When were he born? 1927. So 27, 37, 47, 57. Oh, God. It's going to be edited out in 27, 37, 47, 57, 67, 77, 87. So yes, he was 58. Yes, 58 when this came out. So there we go. And how old was Tanya Roberts? I want to know now. I want to know what the age difference is. Where are we? Tell you, if this were live, you'd be umming and ahhing at me. 1949 she was born, so 49, 59, 69, 79. So she was 36. She was 36 when this came out. So there was 22 year difference. So yeah, he was technically old enough to be a father. Anywho, so there we go. So that's A View to a Kill. I'll probably edit all that out, but I'm just curious. Anyway, so that's it for my top 5. So let's move on to the honourable mentions. Right, we'll begin. Horror. So first up is Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. I think part 5. A New Beginning, which is not the best of the Friday the 13th films, but it's still a lot of fun. It does, carry over some characters from the previous Friday the 13th films. Well, one of them, but played by a different actor, and it does have a twist in it, but they won't spoil. But it's still a fun film and worth a viewing, and it does have a shocking scene. I find it shocking anyway. Even though there's people getting killed left, right, and centre because it's Friday the 13th, and there's gore and all that stuff. But there's one scene in particular that I don't know, it always takes me by surprise. I know it's coming, but it always takes me by surprise and makes me go. But anyway, next up, Cat's Eye, based on a Stephen King, I think Stephen King short stories or something. It's an anthology film. Which I don't know, I've got a really soft spot for. It's not the best anthology film by a long shot, and it's not even the best horror film ever made by a long shot. But I really like it. It's several stories with a loose connection in that there's a cat that sees all this stuff happening, and everybody knows the last one. The last story is it's got like a troll. I think they call it a troll in it. That's a lot of fun, and the cat saves a little girl from this troll that wants to take her away to Troll World or whatever. And there's other stories as well. But that's fun anyway, it's Cat's Eye. Next up is The Company of Wolves from Neil Jordan. The first film released by Palace Pictures. We did it on Friday Night Appointment with Fear not that long ago. A great horror fairy tale with a great cast and great transformation effects, all practical obviously, because it's 1985. Not quite on the par of like The Howling and American Werewolf in London, but still really well done and imaginative effects. But it's a cool film. And very atmospheric, and doesn't make a lick of sense. It's like I said, it's like a fairy tale or a dream or a nightmare. There's a lot of weird imagery in it, and doesn't make a whole amount of sense. But anyway, right. Next up, Day of the Dead from George A. Romero, the third of his zombie films, which obviously that with the Night of the Living Dead, then Dawn of the Dead, and now Day of the Dead. Everybody thought we were going to go to like Evening of the Dead or Tea Time of the Dead or Midnight of the Dead, but it didn't. The next one spoiled it all and it went for Land of the Dead, but never mind. But this one is Day of the Dead, and I think this is the best one of all of them, including Dawn of the Dead. I've never been a huge fan of Dawn of the Dead. Oh, shock horror. But Day of the Dead is really, really good with a great cast and a proper sense of, dread and angst, and it does feel like the end of the world and there's no hope, even though there are hopeful characters in it. Tom Savini's on top form with his gory effects. They are super duper gory in this, and it is just, I think it is easily the best, in my opinion, the best of the George Romero of the Dead films. So that's Day of the Dead. Right, next up, another horror, Fright Night. Again, another one that we covered in Point with Fear recently. Starring Chris Sarandon and others, Roddy McDowall, and all that jazz. About a vampire that moves next door to Charlie Brewster, and he sees stuff, and then obviously gets embroiled in what's going on with this vampire, and stuff happens, and it's a lot of fun. Some people say it's a comedy horror. I don't think it's a comedy horror. I think it's a horror film with funny bits in. But I won't call it a comedy. Much like people call like The Howling a comedy horror, and I've never understood that. It's a horror film with humorous parts. Same with An American Werewolf in London. Some people call that a comedy horror, but I think American Werewolf is more comedic than The Howling. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But anyway, Fright Night. Well worth a watch. Great film. One of the best vampire films out there. Welcome to Fright Night. So there we go. Right, next up, bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Commando. We did this in Magnificent Mondays a while ago. What can we say? Suiting up, much like in Rambo, First Blood Part 2. They kind of went head to head, these two films, didn't they? I imagine First Blood did better. Suiting up, going in, killing bad guys, all the explosions. I think it had the highest body count, I think, of any mainstream film, I think, up to that point. Don't ask me how many people died in it, on screen. But it's a lot of fun. It is a cool film, this Commando. And anyway, right, next up, another horror, going back to horror again. Reanimator from Stuart Gordon. Loosely based on H.P. Lovecraft's Herbert West Reanimator, starring Jeffrey Combs. Again, super gory, and but not as gory as you think. But it is super gory. with a lot of fun segments in, and a lot of segments that make you go ooh. But it is a cool, fun film, and got several sequels, which were similar. But anyway, next up, let's move on quickly. Next up, sci-fi, animated sci-fi. I love this film. We did this on Magnificent Mondays ages ago. Star Chaser, The Legend of Orrin. You could say it's a Star Wars rip-off. Kind of is. A young man lives on some mines, lived all his life in these mines, digging up like these crystals. I think it's called trinium or something like that. Which is kind of a fuel source, and they think they've got to do that for their god. But he finds out that it's all a lie, and they're just being used as slave labour, and he escapes the mine, and then ends up going out into outer space and having adventures and all that stuff, and going back home to free his people and all that stuff. I just spoiled the film, but never mind. It is a lot of fun. And well worth a watch. Next up, Young Sherlock Holmes, also known as Young Sherlock Holmes and the Pyramid of Fear. I think that's what it was called in the UK. I'm sure it said that on the posters. Everybody just calls it Young Sherlock Holmes, don't they? I think that's all it said on the title card as well, title screen, and the film itself. But anyway, directed by Barry Levinson and written by Chris Columbus of Gremlins and Harry Potter fame, the first 2 Harry Potter films. About Sherlock Holmes and James Watson. I think it's James Watson, isn't it? Who would become Dr. Watson? Meeting at school. And I think they do say in the film, either at the beginning or the end, I can't remember, there's like a card comes up and says, even though Arthur Conan Doyle did, point out, say in his works that they met as adults, it's fun to think, what could have been if they'd met at school or whatever. But anyway, it's a good period adventure film with some good effects, because it's a Spielberg production from Amblin Entertainment, so the effects are really good in it for the time. It's got the first photorealistic special CGI effects in it of the it's like a knight in stained glass comes jumping out of the window, because it's a film about hallucinations. People get stung with like a blow dart and it makes them have hallucinations. So that's where all the cool effects come in mostly. But it's a fun film, and Holmes, although he doesn't know it, he meets up with his arch nemesis Moriarty, but I won't say who Moriarty is. But so there we go. Stars Nicholas Rowe, Alan Cox, John Watson, not James Watson. And others, Freddie Jones as Chester Cragwitch. That's a great name, isn't it? Bloody Rammy Tip. Everybody loves Freddie Jones. So there we go. So that's Young Sherlock Holmes and the Pyramid of Fear, we will call it. So there we go. And I think we've got one more, haven't we? Yes, we have one more to go of my honourable mentions as Enemy Mine, directed by Wolfgang Peterson, and stars Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett, the late Louis Gossett Jr. It's kind of a Robinson Crusoe style tale, or Robinson Crusoe Mars style, whatever. It's a story that's been told. It's a trope. Enemies find themselves flung together on an alien planet, but they've got to come together to survive this hazardous world where there's meteor showers all the time and all that stuff, and mutual enemies come into play, and it's a good film about friendship and all that, and read the book. The book's better. The book's better than the film. I know a lot of people say that, but the book is really good, by Barry Longyear. So anyway, man, and it is a cool film, and it bombed at the box office, if I recall correctly. They expected it to do well. They even got ILM in, Industrial Light and Magic, to do the visual effects, because there's some space battles and stuff in it, and they look really good for the time. And they expected to do really well. It costed a lot of money for the time. I think like over $20 million easy. But it bombed. It didn't click at the box office. So, but it kind of became a cult film afterwards. And it is really, really good. I really like Enemy Mine. I think did we do it in Magnificent Mondays? I don't know. We might not have done. Maybe we will one day. I can't remember. Anyway, so there we go. So that's my list for 1985. My top 5 favourite films and 10 honourable mentions. Let's go through them one more time. First up, we had Back to the Future. That was followed by Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Then we're sticking with Sly. Rocky 4 was next. And then we had Cocoon and A View to a Kill, bringing up the rear of the top 5. Then in the honourable mentions, we had Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, Cat's Eye, The Company of Wolves, Day of the Dead, Fright Night, Commando, then Reanimator, then Star Chaser, The Legend of Orrin, followed by Young Sherlock Holmes, and finally Enemy Mine. So there we go, that's my list for 1985 of my top 5 favourite films of that year and 10 honourable mentions. To be honest, some of them, or quite a few of those, you could pop into the top 5 and take some out, whatever you want. I would happily do that. With most of these, such as like Commando, would easily go in my top 5. Could take Cocoon out maybe, but I'm not going to. Right, so next up we've got 1986. We've got a lot of sci-fi in 1986 from my list. And a bit of horror and some fantasy and another animated film, by the way, curiously enough. So there we go. And some comedy as well. Right, so look forward to doing that whenever I get round to it. I know these come like sporadically, don't they, these videos of mine, because generally I forget to do them and I don't have time and I'm busy doing other things. But I found a gap in my schedule to do this. So anyway, we'll leave it there. We will leave it there. But before we go, don't forget again to like and subscribe and share the videos and drop a comment. Hit the notification bell. If you're subscribed already, then you should be told if I do new videos or go live. Go into the description, you'll see links for stuff like my Patreon page and merch where you can buy t-shirts like this and other stuff and caps and all that jazz. Such as me, I'm Nearly Dead gaming t-shirt. What else? Become a member. Then you see some exclusive videos or early, what they call it, early. I don't know the phrase. Members first look videos. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called. If you're a member, you'll see the videos first before they go public. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, and all that stuff. So right, so we'll leave it there. Is anything else? Can't remember. Whatever. Right. So, thanks for watching, and wherever you are, look after each other, and until next time, I'll see thee.